Brothers and sisters from around the world, thank you for joining us in this dialogue on the occasion of African Liberation Day commemoration. There are so many important dates that are being commemorated, and why keeping them one so wide apart from the other and not making the interrelations among all. For example, the world has been celebrating and commemorating along with Great Britain on the 25th of March, remembering that on the 25th of March of 1807, Great Britain abolished slave trade. The trade, meaning to say the buying and selling of Africans to transport them to the conquered and colonized continent of the Americas, eliminating the indigenous and bringing new labor force, free, without having to pay them wages from Africa, from the continent of Africa. In itself, a bold action of all the abolitionists in Britain and in Europe and elsewhere to stand for the abolition of the trade in human beings, and also the process of enslavement itself. But as on many occasions we've pointed out, before Britain came to this decision, the indigenous people here in the Americas and the enslaved Africans brought in by force from Africa, along with the indigenous, and then later even along with the Asians who were brought in the 19th century, as from 1845, to subvert the wage demands and the demands for a better living condition of the Africans who rebelled against the system of enslavement. And then the European colonial forces, the Dutch, the English, the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, had no other way out than to develop other mechanisms as to substitute this type of labor force in order for them to continue building capitalism as they were really doing at that point in time. That is what it's all about, basically. So that is the abolition of slavery. Then we have what the world came to know as the African Liberation Day, as was called out half a century ago by the outstanding Ghanaian leader, Kwame Nkrumah. But that in itself, again, what is it? If we could talk about African liberation and we don't talk about our liberation, what preceded the moment that Nkrumah came to this brilliant idea of celebrating African liberation, because Africa needs to be liberated from exploitation, from oppression, from colonialism, from neo-colonialism, from imperialist domination, from backward political strata as those were built in time by the colonial forces to substitute them and represent them even after they've gone away. And then they continue to prop up unpopular and dictatorial, even fascist governments, carefully prepared by them, with only having the outlook of a native, but their entire internal system and brain and mind is taken by and is being fed by former colonial and neo-colonial and imperialist ideologies. And that's what they are serving. We have those examples not only in Africa, but you have them also in the Caribbean. We have them also elsewhere, the whole of the Americas. You always find one or two. I mean, I'm talking about the big shots, the colonialists, the neo-colonialists, the imperialists. You always find one or two who could serve their purpose. And it will remain always that it is not we are doing it, it is your own people are doing it. Examples are plenty, and we will be talking about all of these details in upcoming programs with you, listening brothers and sisters, and our dear viewers, because now Radio Eugene Godfried International is broadening itself also onto the video side and the television side of it, with images simultaneously. So, in between the abolition of slavery and the slave trade by Britain and African Liberation Day, and even before the British decided to abolish slave trade and to be the first ones also in 1833, after that to finally abolish slavery as European forces, we've seen that before that already we had the indigenous, albeit the Tainos, the Kalinagos, or the many other denominations and nationalities that we have on this continent of now known as the Americas. We have the Africans who together with them, and also the Chinese. In Cuba we have the example of the Chinese. Not only integrated the Mambi Liberation Army in general, but it also went into the Palenques together with the Africans and indigenous. Palenques were liberated zones in the mountains and the bush that provoked a rupture, complete dislocation from the colonial metropolis, in this case Spain, but we've had it also in Jamaica towards the British. We had it elsewhere with the Dutch, in Guyana, Suriname, what have you. And on the coastline of Venezuela, where so many enslaved Africans from the islands like Curacao, Bonaire, St. Martin, or Trinidad and Tobago, I mean to say, had to flee off and go and hide on the coastline of Venezuela till Colombia. Dear listening brothers and sisters and viewers, that is a step into liberation. African liberation, listening brothers and sisters and our dear viewers, liberation, African liberation is an ongoing process. We cannot say it started that day, such and such a day. It started way before. As soon as the first African resisted colonialism and the act of slave trade and enslavement right on the continent of Africa itself, where he was captured, imprisoned right on the coastline of and the territory of Africa itself, then again imprisoned in ships that transported them, men and women and children, to unknown lands forever. Be imprisoned again on the plantations, in all the islands and all the territories, from what is today Argentina up to the United States, Canada. All that territory is included in it. And sometimes even they were brought to Europe, France, Holland, Belgium, England. The examples are right here. Imprisoned. So therefore, we have to talk liberation, but then expressed by ourselves, as seen by our people in struggle, who have to be victorious at the end of the day. Absolutely, for peace, equality, and social progress. Only in the sphere of... Thank you so much. And I am Eugene Godfried, your host.